And together with Destination Justice, together with Special Rapporteur of Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, Mr. Fabricius, together with Mr. Browder and many others, experts who used to work with us and work regularly on the reform of Interpol, we try to find solution how to stop impunity. And the question this could be answered with they have to pay money for all their wrongdoings. And my colleague Jędrzej Cherep will present some kind of first our steps. It's the task for us for the next years to advocate and to create this mechanism, how actually we could prevent and to stop impunity. Jędrzej, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ludmila. And thank a lot to all the previous speakers. I hope to make a reference to the last presentation after a few words on the idea for the compensation fund, which was brought upon by Mr. Bernd Fabricius, the special reporter of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, who, as you may know, was tasked with investigating the context of the misuses of the Interpol, the scale, and the patterns which are used by many countries in relation to this. And he, this spring this year, he published his report where he proposed creation of the compensation fund for the victims. His idea was based on the fact that, I will quote, at the national level, persons who were innocently imprisoned are entitled to financial compensation. Such compensation is in principle also available to persons who were held in detention following an abusive or erroneous red notice according to the laws of the arresting country. This is a theory, so if you are arrested in Poland, you could possibly apply for compensation from the Polish state. But in accordance with the principle of casual responsibility, which he calls polluter pays, polluter as country polluting the system of international justice, this fund should be fed by contributions from states proportionally to the number of unjustified notices requested by their national central bureaus. So, for example, Turkey would be, if Turkey has, let's say, 1,000 red notices, I'm just guessing, giving a rough figure, it should pay 1,000 units, let's say, I don't know, whatever amount we would take for one unit. This obviously has a idea about limiting the appetite of the states for putting red notice on the political basis, understanding that nobody likes to pay penalties. The question we should raise is whether this proposal is enough, and in our report that you can have a copy of, we give some ideas that could broaden this proposal. Obviously, being in prison or detention center on unjust basis has severe consequences not only for economic but also for personal and social well-being of a person. Direct compensations don't solve all the consequences of the so-called secondary victimization, which is a term used by lawyers when the facts where you are arrested and being put in a specific type of uncomfortable contact with institutions where everyone treats you as guilty, or with your social circles, makes the person being victimized for a second time. And this should also be taken into account. So, as our colleagues from Destination Justice, the organization who is a co-host of this session, put it in our last joint seminar, victims should not only be granted direct compensation, but also social, economic, legal, and humanitarian assistance. They simply should be made feeling that the state and the society are on their side, not against them. As for the technicalities of the compensation fund, of course, this is a question on how much should states pay, for example. On our recommendation list, which you can find in the report, we propose to establish a fixed amount of compensation, a certain amount for each month of the period when the person's name was in the wanted list, on the wanted list. Understanding that every month of being labeled as criminal has a devastating consequences, not only for your economic situation, but for reputation and for psychological well-being. Our colleagues could tell you more about it. Also, it is important that to make the national central bureaus, the country offices, a part of the compensation-seeking procedures, not only the polluting states. A person should be able to file claim against the national central bureau with the relevant national court. So I'm just recalling the story of our good friend Muratbek Ketebayev, who spent a new year and some period of the 2015, at end of the 2015 and early 2016 in prison in Madrid, where for many days he was effectively deprived of medicines for diabetics. I believe it should be not only the requesting country, but also the Spain, also the arresting country, who should be equally who should be paying compensation for in such a case. So it may also be a mixed mechanism where part of the money comes from the country that we can call the polluter of the system, and the other one can be done, and other part can be provided by the country who is actually arresting and imprisoning person, often also mistreating this person. Also, to provide a healthy boost for the Commission for control of the Interpol files to actually deal with appeals on time. If the Commission has not responded to the appeal within the prescribed time limits, the applicant should be entitled to a fixed monetary compensation, a certain amount of money for each day of delay. For more details on the Open Dialog Foundation's assessment of the proposal of that came from the Council of Europe, please refer to our report that you can collect here. And so let me just make a small reference to what Yusuf told. We were hoping to also include in our video Turkish-German writer Doğan Akhanli, who was arrested in Spain upon the Interpol red notice filed by the Turkish authorities. His case is really fresh, and his case became very loud in Spain. He was fortunately released from jail, and his trial is ongoing, but he's not imprisoned right now. I think it was partially possible. I mean, okay, there are two questions. Why Spain? Because it's not the only case in Spain. There is also Swedish-Turkish writer Hamza Yeltsin, who is also now imprisoned in Spain. The question of vulnerability of certain Western states to pressures from the authoritarian governments is very actual here. We already witnessed pressures extended by Kazakhstan on the Spanish authorities in cases of Alexander Pavlov, of Muratbek Ketebayev, whom I mentioned, and where we were involved in informing Spanish public opinion, media, politicians, institutions, NGOs, that there is some deeper political behind those cases, and I hope this laid ground, and right now when there are these cases related to Turkey in Spain, Spanish institutions such as the Court Audiencia Nacional, who released Doğan Akhanli, as well as Spanish media, can already learn from their own mistakes and can tackle this problem. I have already collected very fresh documents. For example, a very strong letter from the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which requests the European Union's Foreign Affairs and Security Office to take this, to engage European Union's mechanisms to demand changes, as well as our good friend and head of the Human Rights Committee of the OSCE, Ignacio Sanchez Amor, also brought this issue to his Foreign Affairs Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain, devoted himself to also bringing this problem to the EU level. So we hope this learning by mistakes can also be fruitful, and we hope that we can answer to the case like Yusuf's and like others, not only on individual basis but on systemic basis. Thank you.